We have a serious problem in this world that we live in today. It is way too easy for someone to own a podcast mic. Everyone's got a podcast nowadays, and I'm all for freedom of speech, but I would argue that not everyone needs one. Podcasts and just the sheer number of them that are out there is something that's been on my mind a lot lately. That is how little I have going on in my life. But I have some thoughts about podcasts, and before we go any farther, however, I do have a confession to make. I am guilty of podcasting.
What's up, Creamers? Welcome to the Cookies and Cream podcast. I'm your host, Cream, my co-host, Cookie.
What's up?
We're just two friends, and the title's not racially motivated, by the way. And we just decided, start a podcast, because that's what people do.
Yeah, so I am pretty hypocritical when I say not everyone needs a podcast, because I definitely did not need a podcast. On one hand, it makes sense that everyone has a podcast. They're at the forefront of new media. Here in America, we had presidential candidates going on podcasts, and those podcasts impacted the election.
I want to thank some people real quick. I want to thank the Nelk Boys, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn, Bustin' with the Boys, and last but not least, the mighty and powerful Joe Rogan. Aiden Ross.
What does a fascist mean?
It means you are a far right authorization on ultra analyst.
I don't care about policy or anything. I care about what podcast my president goes on. Podcasts are influencing the political and economic state of the world.
Oh my God, can we talk about the political and economic state of the world right now?
Your favorite influencer most likely has a podcast because it is incredibly lucrative. If you had a big following that was willing to watch you talk out of your ass for an hour for thousands of dollars, you would do it, don't lie to me. I would do it, and I did it for no money and no followers.
Statistically, when a girl gets involved in the web that is Dan Bilzerian, I imagine right off the rip they don't stand a fucking chance.
I'll keep a girl in rotation for 2 years sometimes, and I feel like as long as I don't fuck them too much or, without hooking up with other girls, they know, what it is coming in and they're having fun. And if they want to come back, it's usually, they break up with a boyfriend and they're fucking blowing me up. It's I'm all the bit fuck you, I guess, to these guys.
Plato and Socrates over here. Podcasts that get a lot of streams make a ton of money, especially on YouTube, which favors length more than anything. But the downside to that is that the longer the podcast, the more likely you are to say something stupid.
So there's definitely something in us to conquer. Men want to conquer.
Right.
So it's, women are in a nature setting to be conquered.
And look, I've had a podcast, and I've said some stupid things on that podcast.
Do you support autism? Gonna have to go with a maybe on that one. I don't know for sure.
I think there's definitely a graph to be made there, where it's the longer you speak into a podcast mic uninhibited, the dumber you become. My personal favorite influencer, Hailey Welch, aka Hawk Tuah, has a podcast called Talk Tuah.
Y'all really thought I was done? I'm just getting started, baby.
That gave me goosebumps. It's pretty much exactly what you would expect when you think Hawk Tuah podcast.
She's Hawk Tuah spit on that thing. I'm Hawk Tuah.
Just shit on that thing.
Shit on that thing. Please get her a hat that says shit on that thing.
Okay, maybe not
Shit on that thing. That respect.
Yeah. Just dab.
I love it. I do. This is what humanity was meant to be. I'm being facetious, and when Talk Tuah dropped, the entire internet was being facetious. But everyone making fun of Talk Tuah online made it super successful for at least the first few weeks. Talk Tuah was number 3 on the Spotify charts at one point. And honestly, just me personally, out of those 4, I would probably rather watch Talk Tuah. But I am saddened because there hasn't been an episode of Talk Tuah in almost a month. I am starting to get the shakes. There are bugs in my skin. I do believe that this hiatus is due to Hailey Welch, aka Hawk Tuah, being involved allegedly in an alleged crypto scam recently, allegedly.
My Hawk meme coin is live!
There's a strategic allocation, right, through a foundation. Every single one of those was signed through a SAFT. The deployer wallet, you've heard of a strategic allocation or a private
How much
sale?
did y'all get doing a pre-sale? How much did y'all make?
It's not that
Selling
we
out
made.
your fans So
over
other
here,
people
can
can
you give
dump on your fans.
Hold on, Coffeezilla, take a chill pill, brother.
So
let's
y'all just
speak.
rug pulled a bunch of people. What
No,
are you
no, there's
talking?
no rug. We're here every single day. There's no rug pulled, and it's not done by us. Yes, snipers sniped it up to an insane market cap.
Side note, like super side note, the other alleged scammer kind of sounds like the guy that does flashlight reviews on TikTok.
Oh yeah, big Buster, I'm done. Did it again. Found me another grail. And this one talks. Check it out. One more for the folks in back. Oh yeah, he's gonna get funky, all right. This is the Mater Baiter, y'all.
I need help. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked, I know. Look, Talk Tuah is a great, very intellectually challenging podcast that I love, but it's very clearly targeted at women, which is fine, of course. I'll still listen, but if I'm feeling manly and I want to get my guy on, there's always the other end of the podcasting spectrum for me to listen to, which I would just call alpha male podcasts. The best way I can describe these in kind of like a blanket statement is insecurity in podcast form.
All right, so now what I want you to do is, ladies, real quick, don't fucking waste my time. Rate the guys. Do me a favor, Josh. Stand up real quick. I want you to rate me, my co-host, and then our fucking producer. Go from 1 to 10, just off beauty. Go.
2.
Okay.
I would give him a 9.
Okay. What is she over there?
I would give him a 10 because he invited me.
All right. So again, you sound like a stupid ass bitch. I'm trying
Thank
to figure
you.
out why you rated me a 2 and you just gave him a 9. You gave me a 2. You only gave me a 2 because of the whole interaction that we've been having, right? So do me a favor, get the fuck up and get the fuck out.
I have to ask, what's the point of that exercise there? I get it's like an ego thing, probably, but why? I mean, he had to expect that someone would be honest and rate him poorly. I don't know why he was so shocked by it. I wonder if Socrates ever went off on women who called him ugly. Something to think about. These are our modern day philosophers, guys.
Guys would follow me around the club, watching me like run game on bitches.
Yeah.
Just, dropping riz.
Yeah.
Because every night I go to the club and I would just make out chicks.
For sure.
And back then I was just starting my YouTube career and I wasn't really doing it for content. Like I was just trying to be a fuckboy. I was just making out bitches.
Yeah.
Right? And it was crazy because I would go to the club and make out like 10 girls a night. And a lot of guys just were blown away. But for me, that was like a very normal experience.
Yeah. For sure. For
so
sure.
guys would literally follow me around the club, watching me do that.
For sure.
And this dude came up to me. He's like,
Anytime I see one of these like token alpha male influencer guys, they are always, without fail, near a podcast mic. It's like their lifeline. It's like they need it to survive. If they get too far away, they get weak. I don't know. Maybe there's something there. Which reminds me of another genre of podcast I keep seeing, which is just schizophrenia.
You got to know that NASA is evil. That's why when you take NASA and add a T, it can spell the word Satan. Okay, that's why the NASA's logo is a serpent's tongue. Okay, because NASA is of the devil, and Christians, you got to have Holy Spirit. You got to have discernment. You got to know who the enemy is. And if you're sitting up here laughing at me because I'm telling you the truth, you're the problem.
I am the problem. I'm sorry. I feel like if you have to add a letter and then rearrange the letters to make your theory work, then maybe it's a bit of a stretch, I don't know. I've been trying to get to the bottom of why there is so many podcasts. And I think I've narrowed it down to one singular phrase. That phrase being, bro, let's start a podcast. So I'm going to go into kind of a deep dive of a few podcasts that I have found that are just the epitome of bro, let's start a podcast. First up is the Two Poppy podcast.
What is your favorite frat?
I don't know. I like how big SAE's parties are and like Lambda, but like I think ASIG just threw a really cool party. So
I heard, dude.
Yeah.
Kyle was just on it. He's an ASIG.
No way, bro. Kyle was there? The Kyle? Wow. Crazy, bro. Two Poppy is the premier podcast of Arizona State University.
Guys, don't listen to anyone when they try and shame you
about going to ASU, bro.
For going to ASU, wanting to go to college to party. That's part of the college experience. If you focus on school, if you put school first,
fine.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you, Two Poppy. A lot of podcasts nowadays get called boring and unnecessary and frankly offensive to humanity, but not Two Poppy. Anything you could ever want in a podcast, it's here. They've got riveting stories that will have you on the edge of your seat the entire time you're hearing them.
One of our frat parties, one of my boys like tried to fight me. Like
Bro,
while I was DJing.
One of your boys?
Yeah. Well, he's like in my frat. Like he's one of the boys. He tried to like fight me while I was DJing. He was just like, fucked up. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? and he's like, "You want to fight right now?" And we're up on like an elevated ass like DJ stand. Dude, it was like the craziest thing.
Was it Kyle? Was Kyle there? Scientific theory is being discussed on 2 Poppy.
When guys pull up 8 deep to a party, they're like, what do you expect me to do? Just let you in? Like, what are you bringing to our party? Like, even like, I wasn't even really able to let a lot of my boys in. It's like, I told them, if you want to come, you got to bring like a girl or 2, you know?
That counts as chemistry, I think. Serious intellectual discussions of morality and ethics in our society today are happening on 2 Poppy.
You guys are a good duo. It seems like you're loyal to each other. Okay. Would you take one for the team in a 2-man?
If my boy right here, he's trying to get with someone he's been talking about, he's trying to bag that, and her friend is not my type, I would do it. Take one for the team, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
For my
that's
boy.
good.
I mean, he's my boy. If
I'm sorry, I cannot get over his fucking hat. This is awesome. This is high art. 2 Poppy takes complex, thought-provoking questions that have never been answered by humanity's greatest minds before, and they answer them.
What ASU sororities have the baddest girls?
I don't want to like make anyone mad. It's a tough subject.
You don't have to say it.
So how about this? I was gonna say the stories that I consistently hang out with and always have a good time hanging out with.
Okay.
How about that? I hang out with a lot of Pi Pis, always love hanging out with them.
Pi Pis.
I hang out with KKGs, always love hanging out with them. DZs, always have fun hanging out with them. And AKOs, always love hanging out with them.
Yeah.
Those are the 4 that I hang out with the most.
For sure.
Because they're always
For sure.
they're all
Yeah.
always fun.
Hell yeah.
I love those.
Yeah,
I love
for
those
sure,
girls.
For sure. If you had a time machine and you went back in time and you asked Socrates that question, he would not be able to answer it. That is a fact. I love the 2 Poppy podcast, and I'm being genuine when I say that. The 2 Poppy podcast has given me immeasurable joy in my time as a viewer. I'm watching ironically, but I am unironically loving it, and quite frankly, I am enamored by these frat gentlemen. So now I'm thinking maybe we shouldn't completely outlaw podcast mics, you know, maybe we just need them to be only legal in frat houses. Another podcast that just really exemplifies the bro let's start a podcast phenomenon is the When in Doubt podcast.
Our family has always just gone to Qdoba instead of Chipotle. Maybe it's just because of our location as well, because there's more Qdobas around here, but I just like it more. I've had Chipotle probably not as much as Qdoba, but it's about the same amount, but if I was ever given the choice, I'd probably take Qdoba for me personally.
Yes, that's the entire clip. I love these guys. The best way I could describe the When in Doubt podcast is just dudes talking. And I know you could say that about 97.8% of podcasts, but it really applies here.
To say back in 2020, getting done with the day of school during lockdown, hopping on Fortnite with the boys.
Yeah,
there was nothing better than that. Like
yes.
we were like, I don't mind hopping on again, but it'll never be the same as it was back in 2020, 2021.
Yeah, I for sure agree.
It's beautiful. Allow me to introduce you to the main cast of characters here. The most vocal of the group is definitely Chair Guy.
Thing with stealing the game files. Yes, they may have updated theirs purposely so that if people did get the game files, they could play the game, but they didn't know that, technically. They didn't know that. So where do you draw the line in emulation? Like, how recent does it have to be? And the last argument, before I let you guys kind of have your opinions after.
Before you let us talk?
Yeah, before I let you talk. After.
Chair Guy kind of acts as the leader of the podcast. He's also clearly the one who dragged everyone else into this with him.
Completely with everything. Like, with everything. Which is awesome, and I am a control freak on that side, as I would not like anybody else but me to do it. But at the same time...
Is this an apology?
Yes, no, listen.
Okay.
But at the same time, I'm getting to that part. But at the same time, by me doing it all by myself, basically, it does get to be a lot. And there's no doubt about that. And when the podcast starts, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. It's super fun. And it is super fun.
This is Couch Guy. He acts as the second most vocal of the group, I would say. He's always good to be there when you need someone to challenge Chair Guy.
Before you let us talk?
Yeah, before I let you talk, after all, completely with everything. Like, with everything. Which is awesome, and I am a control freak on that side, as I would not like anybody else.
This is
but
Muscles Guy. He's kind of the strong, silent type.
apology?
That's essentially the main players, but where When in Doubt really shines is with their guests. One of my favorites is Music Guy.
Really good doesn't necessarily make it like commercial. Like that can be shown with like a lot of like the biggest like best albums like critically viewed, you know, like OK Computer by Radiohead. The only song that someone knows from that is No Surprises, you know what I'm saying? No one's bumping Paranoid Android on the radio, you know what I'm saying?
He had an incredible debut on the podcast. Chair Guy couldn't get a word in for at least 30 seconds at one point, which is like It was a new record at that point. I thought Music Guy was like the obvious name choice for him, just based on the other ones. But no, the comments were calling him Big Curl. But one guest in particular really stood above the rest. One guest came on the When in Doubt podcast, and he completely upset the power dynamic of the When in Doubt podcast. That guest is Gel Guy.
I would want to win the biggest sport in the Super Bowl.
Okay, you want to win the Super Bowl.
Because that's just like everybody's dream, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody here's watched it.
Yeah.
Everybody watched. Even if you like football and even if you don't like football, everybody watches it. Because you'll go to school the next day, you'd be like, oh, did you watch the Super Bowl last night? Yeah. Did you? Yeah. Did you? Yeah. Everybody wants to be like Tom Brady holding up that
6 rings.
ring.
Yeah.
You know,
Gel Guy owned that room. This dude oozes charisma. SpongeBob Shirt Guy is stoned out of his mind, but that's a different story.
you want that lower seed to win all the time because everybody loves an underdog story because I think it's something that's so relatable to all of us because we've all been in that situation before where people have doubted us and we feel for that person or that team and we're like, you know what? I want you to win. I want to see that happen.
I would be willing to bet an absurd amount of money that Gel Guy is a youth pastor. Every clip of Gel Guy was getting more views than the ones without him. Gel Guy was a sensation. The people yearned for more Gel Guy. But then he wasn't on the pod again for a while, until he was. They brought Gel Guy back for a one-on-one sit-down interview with Chair Guy. And it was glorious, to say the least.
Thing is, and we'll talk about this, I've been extremely busy working as a camp counselor this summer.
Woo! Called it! Give me my money now, baby.
I'm realizing as I'm editing this that he says camp counselor and not youth pastor like I predicted. Same difference though, basically. So
similarly to Hawk Tuah and even to Poppy, people watching the When in Doubt podcast, ironically to make fun of it, translated it into real success. I mean, the Qdoba clip has 1 million views. Jack Harlow from Narnia follows them. And I think they deserve it. This is genuinely good to see. And over time, I've even noticed their comments are getting nicer. They're turning their haters into fans. So yeah, When in Doubt podcast. Next up, baby. The last podcast that I want to talk about is the Cookies and Cream podcast. It's me. It's the podcast that I was on. It was junior year of high school. I turned to my friend Adrian and I said, bro, let's start a podcast. And we did.
And we just decided, start a podcast because that's what people do.
Me and Adrian were friends, but we weren't super close friends. We didn't really know that much about each other, so the chemistry was nothing to write home about, to say the least. So most of the podcast, just in general, was just us referencing the title over and over again.
Are you a fanboy of Cookie?
I'm a fanboy of Cookie, yeah.
Yeah, you're a fanboy of Cookie. Mm-hmm. Because, you can't really have cookies and cream without.
Dude, you cannot have the cookie without the cream. You cannot have the cream without the cookie. They hang the best in each other, really, honestly. I think we do.
We also didn't really have any ideas going in, which in retrospect is not good for a podcast or anything creative, really. A good example of this is the fact that we did a Q&A as our first episode. We just took questions from our classmates because we had nothing else to talk about.
Anonymous asks, Zach, you gay? We got that question a total of 3 times.
We didn't really know how to fill runtime, and much like everyone else in this video, we would just say things sometimes.
What's your opinion on Sally?
Sally? Dude,
Sally,
she
yeah.
bad. She bad.
Yeah, she is.
She bad, I say, about a cartoon car. And now it's on the internet forever. Something of note is we only did 3 episodes, and the 3rd episode was our big comeback episode after I guess we didn't post for a while between 2 and 3. And then after that comeback episode, we never posted again. Just because I forgot the password and I couldn't get back into the channel. I'm not kidding, that's what happened. Kind of a fitting end, really. Look, I would never say to don't follow your dreams, or don't ever start a podcast. Maybe just have a semblance of a plan before you do it, and don't just start a podcast just for the sake of starting a podcast. I might look back and cringe at the podcast, mainly me in the podcast, really. But I don't regret it. I had a lot of fun doing a podcast with my friend, even if it was really bad, and I wouldn't want to have never done that, you know what I mean? So if you really want to start a podcast, I say go for it. Maybe podcast mics aren't such a bad thing after all.
Because I love my mom. I want her to come. I don't know if this is weird to say, but I want my mom to have flawless experiences.
I want you to have that,
yeah,
too.
and I want you to have that as well.
So it's
is that weird to say?
Really, I genuinely want my mom to be getting
down good.
Yeah.
You know what? Never mind. Actually, I take it all back. Get rid of them forever.
You can't have the complete package without the cherry, because like
No, the cherry on top. He makes it better.
when you get like a cookies and cream ice cream, and they be like, "Yo, you want some cherry?"
Yeah.
You just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.